It's not an agency, but it works to transfer vital technology developments out of federal laboratories and into the market. The Federal Lab Consortium encompasses some 300 federal organizations. For an update on 50 years, we turn to the Executive Director, Paul Zielinski. Paul, good to have you with us.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And the Chair of the consortium, Dr. Whitney Hastings. Dr. Hastings, good to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking us to come today.
And, I didn't realize that it's been 50 years of technology transfer. Sometimes we tend to think that all technology was invented last week in Silicon Valley, but in fact, this has been a technologically fertile country for centuries. And maybe just tell us how the consortium, because everyone's got a day job, except Paul, you're the only full-time person there at their agencies. In your case, Dr. Hastings, the National Cancer Institute. Tell us about the 50th year here.
Yeah, well, this is exciting. 5 decades of progress carrying out our mission of promoting tech transfer, educating tech transfer professionals, and facilitating the partnerships between the federal labs and companies and bringing technologies to the marketplace. So it's exciting. We're going to celebrate this at our national meeting in April. So that's super excited. It's an annual gathering where we're going to have hundreds of tech transfer professionals all in one place in Dallas, Texas. This conference is a big event for us, and so we've got lots planned to celebrate these 50 years. If you'll go to our website, you'll see a timeline, the past 5 decades of tech transfer. We'll also have it at our meeting for folks to check out and see all the great things that we've done over the past 50 years.
And Paul, of course, the recipient of tech transfer is the marketplace, companies, corporations, and so forth. And would you say that the consortium's main role is maybe unifying the way agencies do this so that it looks cogent to the external people that are the recipients of the transfer, that it's not wildly different from the National Cancer Institute to, some lab somewhere out in, say, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory?
Sure, and that's exactly the point of the consortium. I mean, when you get down to when we talk about technology transfer, you invest your tax dollars in research and development performed by the government. All the different labs and the agencies, they're working on their mission. But, our government doesn't make stuff. You don't buy something from the government. You buy something from a company. So for that research to reach you as a person that paid for it, it has to get transferred. So we transfer it to a company. They make, sell, distribute that material, something you can buy, a service you can use. So there's lots of great and exciting examples of tech transfer, but that's really the heart of it. And like you said, if you're working with the Environmental Protection Agency or NASA or the NIH or the Department of Defense, as the public, you look at it as the government. You want a similar experience and sort of like a cohesive experience. And that's really what we try to do, is form this community around all of the professionals in this field.
And Whitney, give us an example, say, of something that you've seen where a federally funded development occurred. What does it take to get it out into the marketplace so that it's all legal and kosher?
It takes a lot of hard work from our tech transfer professionals and a lot of dedication from the scientists that are at the labs, all the way to the companies. I'll give you a couple of examples. Technology is transferred from Health and Human Services that many people are aware of. For example, Gardasil, the HPV vaccine that almost all of your kids at age 11 get these days. So that was the result of technology transferred from the federal labs into companies in the marketplace. Another great example for third world countries, for example, Menafrovac, that was an FDA technology where it involved partnerships as well as licensing to get that. And now I think there have been millions that have been vaccinated as a result of that great therapy.
And what's the essential process? What do people that do this for a living, technology transfer for their agencies, give us the skeleton view anyway of the steps involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all starts with us protecting our intellectual property, and we do that through patenting in most cases. And so we'll start there, and usually the technology is developed in those early years through the scientists at the individual agencies. Then we do a little bit of market outreach, and we try and find a partner, the right partner, to take the technology to the market. Once we find that partner, we'll execute a licensing agreement. We may also do a collaboration so that the scientists can work with the company while they do that early stage development. And then once that early stage development is done, we release the reins and let the company take it from there.
We are speaking with Whitney Hastings. She is the chair of the Federal Lab Consortium, and with Paul Zielinski, the executive director. And just to be clear then, this is work that had to be done by government scientists. That is to say, not work done under contract, say under a CRADA, where the company develops this technology in the first place.
Yeah, it usually starts with the federal scientists coming up with the original idea. There are cases where we do create a partnership between a company and that federal scientist, and new innovations, new intellectual property is developed that might be co-owned, for example. But yeah, the original nugget or first step is the idea and the innovation from the federal scientists.
And Paul, what have you noticed over the years in the motivation end of this? I mean, companies want to license technology because they feel they can sell it and make some money. The federal scientists may have developed it out of the goodness of her or his own heart, but yet might feel, well, golly, maybe I should benefit from this a little bit more than just my federal salary and the button I get, for having transferred something out.
I think one of the important things, though, is that actually the work that's done is very mission-oriented at the laboratories. I mean, they're trying to accomplish what they're assigned to do. And then you get these great inventions. Well, you don't accomplish the mission just by having the idea. You accomplish the mission by putting that into action. That's where these partnerships come in, and that's where this transfer comes in. Because all of a sudden, this is something that you can do. You can actually, if you're the Department of Defense, you might buy it, but you have to have somebody produce it. So these things have to exist. That's the key. So the scientists, it's a great idea. We'll transfer it to somebody they can make and sell that product. That's the accomplishment of the mission, actually. And in fact, yes, there is some level of any royalties that is shared with the inventors. It's not huge amounts, but it is it's a pretty good incentive in order to get them to really participate in the process, identify inventions, and actually, then help us get it to the marketplace.
So the federal scientists can share a little bit in it, in what ensues after the transfer.
Yeah, there's a percentage that's actually in the law that goes to the scientist as the inventor for any of the royalties that the government takes in. Now, you have to understand, it's not huge amounts of royalties that we take in all cases. In a few cases, Whitney mentioned, like, for example, a vaccine. Yeah, those are some pretty substantial royalties. That's a lot larger amount of money. But in a lot of cases, it may not be huge amounts of money that comes in. It might actually be a relatively small invention or, a small royalty stream. But it's an important invention nonetheless.
Sure.
So, the amount of money transferred. The idea of the license, though, is sort of like a deed. The company can gather investment itself.
Sure. Well, as one of my professors used to say, that small royalty might be better than the jab in the eye with a sharp object. So,
right.
On that end. And how has this whole process changed over the years? What are some of the big learnings that have come through the FLC in 50 years of doing technology transfer?
But when you look at it, really, I mean, a lot of this even goes back to, World War II and before. But, what you get down to is you've got this huge capability of research. How do you not just use it to win the war, but win the peace, as it was put? So, you've got that. And then, so you get a group of folks from the Department of Defense that form this Defense Laboratory Consortium. It's like, hey, we're all doing the same thing. Can we work together, do the same stuff? So that happened in the early 70s. By the time you get to 1974, our 50-year anniversary, they said, let's let the other federal agencies into this consortium as well. You get the Federal Laboratory Consortium. So in 1980, you have two huge pieces of legislation. You get a thing called the Stevenson-Weidler Act that says, look, tech transfer is a mission. This is actually part of your mission as a federal agency and as a federal laboratory. So to establish that, you got a thing called the Bayh-Dole Act that works with, okay, let's recognize that there are intellectual property and that the world deals in intellectual property. So it established how we work with that. Then you fast forward to 1986, two things happen. We mentioned CRADAs earlier, Cooperative Research and Development Agreements, public-private partnerships. So that's authorized in 86, as well as actually putting it into law, this thing of Federal Laboratory Consortium. That was an idea. It was people working together out of the goodness of their heart. Now it was suddenly required in 1986. So that's some of the huge milestones that had happened in terms of getting to where we are today.
And Whitney, do you find that the existence of the consortium can also help agencies avoid duplicative types of research if everyone knows what people are up to?
Oh, absolutely. We actually have collaborations amongst the different agencies on a regular basis. At the national meeting, I mentioned the award ceremony that we'll have where we're going to talk about the past 50 years. One of our awards that we give is interagency partnership, where we're partnering together to accomplish something that has a similar mission or we have a similar goal. So we're always